Q&A. All right, so it looks like we're live now. I see a little live button in the top left corner here. So I think we're live, right?
YouTube is still loading, but I guess we're live, yeah.
Okay, all right, I guess we're all set. Paolo, what do you think? Still waiting? All right. Okay, let's give it a few seconds here. It looks like a few things are loading up.
I have YouTube in another tab, and it looks like it's still stuck on the intro page.
All right. Okay.
Are we sharing the other channels, or oh, there we go. It looks like
bit of background music. So, all right, guys. All right, so I think we're all set here.
Awesome.
Okay, so all right, let me jump in here and make some intros, guys. So this is Ultralytics Live Session 12. Welcome to the live session. I am your host, Glenn Jocher, the founder at Ultralytics, and we're here with Kalen Michael, the Ultralytics head of products, and we're going to talk a little bit about our latest exciting feature called cloud training. But before we do that, you guys are probably asking yourselves, Glenn, where in the world are you? Is this a submarine? What's going on? So I have an explanation. So the team went out here to Barcelona to Mobile World Congress. We've seen a lot of crazy things. Lenovo released a transparent laptop. Xiaomi came out with an electric vehicle. And we're here demonstrating YOLO and Hub to everyone that we can. We got a little booth set up. This is the first time we've done this, so it's really exciting. But it's also really loud. And since we have the live session right now, we were trying to find a really quiet place. And we got kind of lucky. It turns out there's a German startup. It's called Cube. That's how you pronounce that, I think. And we're sitting in one of these cubes here in Mobile World Congress. So I'm here with Paola. Say hi.
Hi.
And in here, it's nice and quiet. So this is going to be great. We got the next hour to explain what's going on with Hub, our new features, and to take questions from you guys, which is really important. So pretty much the latter half of the session is just a big Q&A. So whatever curiosities you have, complaints you got, or questions for myself or Kalen, feel free to drop those right there in the YouTube video, and we'll try and get to those later. Okay, so let's see, Kalen, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing at Ultralytics the last couple of years.
Oh, the last couple of years, yeah, all right.
Step by step, yeah.
Yeah. So as Glenn mentioned, I'm Kalen. I'm currently working as the head of product for Hub, and we're working with the rest of the Hub team to try and get some cool, exciting features out to you guys. So I've been basically just doing that for the last few years, I suppose. Working on improving the Hub product, integrating it properly with YOLO, building a scalable backend, and trying to get all the features that you guys want while trying to maintain the mindset that things should be as simple as possible. So that's been our challenge, and we kind of Glenn's the lead on that, but we always try and build everything in a way that our end user doesn't have to struggle to use it. So that's been our main focus, and I guess
that's cool. Yeah, and I guess to take it back like even further, so to give everybody here a bit of an intro, also just from the beginning. So I was doing particle physics a while ago, and this is how I got into AI, and this is how Ultralytics got started. And in the course of that, I realized that computer vision was just a much more popular and impactful domain than anti-neutrino detection. And so I started focusing more of my efforts there, and ultimately we pivoted the whole company there. And we started launching YOLO models, open source for free for everybody to use, and they got really popular. And we realized that to make things even simpler, we were going to have to do something a bit different. So we've tried to make YOLO as simple as we can, but it's still a nice bit of Python code. And so you have to get your hands dirty with things like environments. You have to run programs, get everything set up. You have to look at acceleration if you want your models to run faster. And it's a bit of a complicated world out there. And we wanted something that could be more accessible to everybody, not just kind of expert programmers. And so we conceived of Hub for this reason. So Hub was, the idea that it started was a no-code tool to train YOLO models. Keep it as simple as possible, but keep a lot of the settings available for the experts that wanted to tweak them. So kind of provide the best out of the box settings, for everybody, so you get the best results out of the door, but also enable you to tweak as much as you want it to really appeal to a broad range of ML engineers and data scientists, from the people that are really prioritizing something like a quick turnaround and a fast product launch with low risk, to the real deep learning scientists that are really doing R&D, like training thousands of models, tuning hyperparameters, and so on. And so Hub's made some exciting strides since then. So we're gonna share our screen here, and Kalen's gonna do a bit of a walkthrough and explain how it works and how the latest cloud training feature works.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
let's see here. Yeah.
Yeah, I got my screen shared here. I'll just wait for it to pop up. There we go.
There it is.
Cool.
Okay.
So yeah, this is Ultralytics Hub. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, I'm here on my dashboard. Should I do a real quick intro of the hub overall, or just jump straight to
yeah. Why don't you start from the beginning? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are just kind of getting started recently, and there's probably a lot of newcomers out there.
Awesome. Sounds good. So yeah, so this is the hub platform that we've been talking about, and here I am on the home dashboard, and it's effectively a cloud tool that allows you to sort of handle all of your computer vision operations. So we have it split up into the main sections here, which would be data sets, projects, and models. Let me go across to the data set tab, give you guys a quick preview of what that looks like. Here you can see I have a bunch of different data sets available to me. Some are privately owned, some are public that are shared by other users. And I can go into, say, a Simpsons data set and take a look and see what that looks like. And this is just, at the moment, a way to preview data sets. You can also get some information and statistics on the data set if I wanted to look at improving it, the class distribution, etc. And then we could go across into projects. The projects is a way for us to group together a bunch of models, and we use that so that we can compare the statistics across the models to kind of see which perform better. So in this example, we can compare the different sizes of YOLO models, but you might use this in the real world to actually test by playing around with different arguments. Perhaps you want to see which configuration gives you the ideal results for your specific use case.
This is a cool feature that, so I used to use weights and biases and Comet and a few other loggers for this. And this is really nice because now we've got this built right into Hub. And it kind of works seamlessly with everything. So you can compare the losses and the accuracies on the different models. And of course, we're looking at the YOLO V8 family here. So this is the default family that we have right now for detection. There's a lot of other models for like segmentation and so on. And those are in separate projects right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. Then over here on the model view, we can go in and we can take a look at a model. These models are already trained, so they're going to have a slightly different view. But we have, again, the metrics at the high level. While you're busy training your model, these will actually show in real time. So it allows you to keep an eye on your model, make sure that you want to keep training it. If you start to see it performs poorly, you might try to stop it early. You can also see a link to the data set that you chose to use to train this model. And again, you have access to the charts as they apply only to this model specifically. And you can preview your model if you want to go ahead and preview it using our Inference API or using our app. So you can also download the Ultralytics app and preview in real time. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the app is really cool. That's what we've been showing mostly here at Barcelona Mobile World Congress. We have it hooked up to a really big screen, and it watches people pass by the booth, and everybody stops and they turn and they're like, wait, what's going on here? And this is when we started to explain about YOLO and so on. So the app is really fun. It comes with some official models too. So you can just scan that QR code and check it out if you haven't yet.
Yeah, perfect space. And then across here, we have our deploy tab. Here's where you could actually use our Inference API on a shared instance if you wanted to add it to one of your projects. And you can export into several of the supported formats, the same formats we support in YOLO directly. Here, we just take out the needs to actually get nitty gritty. Click a button, one button for export, another button for download, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And they also have some settings right there in the exports too. So if you want to export to a specified image size or quantization, for example, or custom options for the different formats, then there's 3 little buttons right there. Got you covered.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, those are the three main areas of Hub. And what we've gone ahead and done, the purpose of the talk today is just to kind of go over our cloud training feature. So if I go ahead and create a model, we'll show you what that looks like. So here, when I open the model creation dialog, I can go ahead and choose which data set I'd like to use. Depending on which data set I use, I will have different options of the models to use. So I could choose between detect, classify, pose, OBB, all the different tasks that we currently support. So in this case, if I have a detect data set selected, I go across. I now have access to all of the detection architectures and pre-trained models that we support by default with YOLO. I could pop in down here and change the advanced configuration. So we have some predefined options here that you can select. And pretty soon we're releasing the option for you guys to be able to add any option. So we've created a front end support for every supported option in YOLO. So that's coming out soon, something to look forward to. And once I've chosen my model, I can go across into the train section. Now, before we only supported the option to train via Google Colab or via your own agent. And effectively they're both the same, except one is hosted on the Google Colab itself. So we have a lot of users that like to play around with training and they get started with Google Colab. But as you guys probably know, it can take quite a long time to train models. So that's not the most exciting thing to do on Colab itself. And not everybody has access to their own agent. So bring your own agent, especially if you want GPU training. That can be complicated sometimes. So what we went and did is we finalized our cloud training for you. So you can train your models on our hardware. And this is the initial kind of implementation that we've released. We have a lot of plans to improve this feature, give you guys even more options. But for the moment, this is what you have access to. And we're definitely sat here with open ears. So if you guys have any suggestions, feel free to raise them to us on our GitHub, GitHub/Ultralytics/Hub. We have an issue tracker there, or by reaching out by email or leaving comment on feedback as well directly in Hub. Cool. So if I go through the train feature, what that looks like, before we get started, it's probably worthwhile mentioning that the cloud training feature for the time being is only available to our pro members. And the reason for that is we want to give early access to those dedicated users and people that are supporting us. So if you want to go ahead and use cloud training, at the moment, you will need to sign up for a pro membership. But we have shared some coupons for you guys to get a month free of Hub Pro if you want to give our cloud training a trial. So we shared that on our LinkedIn and our Twitter if you want to take a look and check that out. So in the cloud training, we have two options for training. We can train via epochs and we can train via time training. The time training is pretty cool addition that we have to YOLO. I don't know if you want to talk on that for a little bit, Glenn, before I talk about cloud training.
Oh, yeah, sure. So time training is something interesting. When we were rolling out cloud training, Kalen came up to me and he's like, wait, Glenn, we're not going to know like how much the training costs. Like if a user puts in 100 epochs, then we don't know how much compute that's going to use because it depends on the model size and the data set and a lot of other factors, even training settings like image size. And so we started trying to build an estimator to realize, well, wait, this is a really difficult task. And we thought we should just do time training. I've seen that in other places too, like Google Vertex. And so we started implementing a time training and it's available in the Python package now. It's the argument's just called time and the units are hours. So if you say something like YOLO train time equals 1, it'll train for 1 hour. And this is pretty accurate. It'll be accurate to like a few seconds. And you can see like the epochs, the way we do it is it computes how many epochs it needs or is likely to be able to get done in that 1 hour. And so the epochs, you can see the estimate keep changing as it gets more and more accurate, as it has trained some epochs and realizes how long they take. So this is now here in Hub, and you can put this in for a time, and you can have like a really small time too. You can put something in for like 30 seconds just to demo this, which is kind of fun. Which I think is what we're going to do here, so you can see a really fast training.
Yeah, cool. All right, so yeah, that's basically saying what Glenn said. So we have the epoch training. I think that's probably going to get more of a scientific result with that because every time you train with the same amount of epochs, you're basically, for the most part, replicating the training. When you use time training, it is important to be aware that it's possible there's some slight variation in the amount of epochs you actually trained for in that time training. But the benefit of it is that you know exactly what your costs are. So that's helpful if your focus is just on getting models out that work. So we have here the time training. Go ahead and use our slider. We currently support up to 7 days. But if you guys need more time, feel free to let us know. We're more than happy to extend that. And if I go ahead and choose a small amount of time, like Glenn has said over here, so we drop it to like 1 minute. So we have one available instance type at the moment with NVIDIA T4s, but we do have plans to extend that and give you more options with different GPUs and instances in the future. We just want to make sure that this feature is really working well and that we're building things in the way that everybody out there is actually going to use it.
This is sort of like our MVP, the minimum viable product. And so we're doing exciting things. We're having conversations with Google about getting quota for additional GPUs and even with the other cloud providers too. So ultimately, we want this to provide a lot of flexibility to allow training on different instance types, even different regions, and to support different cloud providers if you have a preference.
Yep. We currently have 2 different payment options. If you choose time training, you're able to pay up front. So you can just pay everything, select pay now, pay for your entire time training, as it's quite easy to determine how much that cost is going to be. And you can also pay via your account balance. So you can use a top-up prepaid balance, and you can use that to train. This is in place primarily for the epoch training, as we need some kind of way to be able to make sure that we're able to recoup our expenses at the moment. We're still a pretty small startup, but maybe that won't be a problem in the near future.
Less small every year.
Yeah.
Wait, so let me see. So this is funny. So if you click pay now, did it just say 1 cent?
That was how much I had it set.
Yeah. So if you set this for if you set it for 1 minute of training, okay, so is this actually gonna like charge your credit card 1 cent, or how does this work?
Yeah, it'll charge the account that's on the Stripe balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
we didn't want to put a minimum charge in. So I think we did have it at one point. We had a minimum charge of €5, but now that I'm sat here, it looks like maybe that slipped through the cracks. So we'll take a look at that. But yeah, effectively, for this, I'm going to go ahead and just use my account balance to do this demo.
Okay.
So yeah, this should be 1 minute. So I'll click start training, and this should go and provision the instance for me. So in the background, this is going to go and prepare the instance, get everything up and loaded so I can start training my model. And the time it takes for this to get ready can vary depending on the availability that we have. But typically, we say here that it could take up to 10 minutes. Typically, we see between 30 seconds and 5 minutes for spin up. So that's what you can expect. So we'll take a look.
Yeah, spin up's interesting. So the spin up is when we are kind of like requisitioning the VM, turning it on, and then getting the Docker image that has all the training software installed, and then kicking it off. So, and it looks like it just started here. So it got, I guess it's like the first estimate you had count like 30 seconds or so.
Yeah. So we had a connection up for that. So let me take, okay. But I am seeing on my side over here, seeing an issue on the data set that I chose to use. So give me 1 second because.
Oh, and what was that data set?
It's one of the ones on my account that I'm using a lot for demos. So
okay.
I should clean this up if we're going to do demos on my account. Let me jump through this real quick. Currently, that's actually probably worthwhile showing you guys. As we're building up our scaling, we have put a single quota training in place for everyone. So currently, you'll only be able to train one cloud training concurrently. So once your training finishes, you'll be able to launch up and start another training. And as we kind of scale up and we make sure that we're able to manage the load that we're getting from our users, we will definitely increase that for you guys. But just be aware that we do have that in place at the moment. Okay. Right. Give me 1 second.
Okay. So I guess we're kind of stuck a little bit then. If we have one training, then I suppose
I'll get that going again now.
Cancel it or, yeah.
Yeah. So it should hopefully take a look.
So let's see, Coco 6. So these small data sets, like with a number behind them, that indicates the number of images in the data set. So we've taken Cocoa and turned it into really small bite-sized data sets like Cocoa 8, Cocoa 6, Cocoa 128. And these are just essentially the first 3 images for training and 3 images for val. And so these kinds of data sets are really meant for kind of sanity checks. Like before you actually commit some serious compute and some time, it's good to make sure that the workflow works correctly. So like in this case, for example, like it seems like we had a bit of a hiccup and we're trying to restart it. And I guess that's really the purpose of these small data sets. It's to make sure that the workflow is all set before you kind of turn it on and leave for the weekend and show up on Monday and realize it didn't start. So once you see like a bit of an initial result with Cocoa 8, for example, then that can kind of give you some confidence that, okay, the pipeline that I've set up is working correctly. I have a toy data set that's been trained. And now let me turn around and get my actual data set, like the one I've labeled and the bigger one that's going to take a lot longer to train and get that started.
Yeah, they're super useful for that. In my case, you guys shouldn't have this issue on your end, provided you have like actual working data sets. As we're being testers, we like to upload broken data sets and we force the upload so we can test to see the outcome. That's basically what I've done here now. So I have this other training instance at the moment. I can see on the back end that because we had multiple instances training, we also had some users that have started training in the background now. I've had to create, we've gone beyond our buffer. So we're spinning up another instance at the moment, but we have to pull the image. And our training image is quite large. So this is going to take slightly longer for spin up than we did in the previous example.
Okay. So these training images are based on the official images we have for the Ultralytics repository. So we've got a few different Docker images, but the main one for training models is just the default Docker file. And that is based on a PyTorch base, which in turn is based off of some NVIDIA images. And so these are fairly large since they have a lot of CUDA NAND files that need to be installed. And I think the image ends up being about 6 gigabytes or so. So these are the images that the Hub Cloud training is based on. So when we spin up a new instance, we have to download that image and get that going.
Yeah, we currently have support, so we're trying to determine the need at the moment. So we kind of have availability for certain amount of concurrent trainings for our users, and we scale that up as demand increases. But we're trying to find that kind of sweet line at the moment between the use and not spending more than our users at the moment. So yeah, that's where we work.
Yeah, and I guess this has been quite popular, so it might make sense to spin up more units in a buffer so that I guess there's more availability for new people showing up.
Yeah, it's something to be aware that if you come and you happen to grab one of our buffer pods when you start training, it should spin up much faster. But if you do end up getting caught with a few users at the same time, then you might end up in more of a queue.
All right, now it looks like this is kicked off. Second time, got it, and this is training really quickly, but that's to be expected since we have a tiny data set. So let's see, we plugged it in for 60 seconds, right, Kalen? So it looks like this isn't for a set number of epochs; it's for a set time. Yeah. So it's computing here on the fly, like how many epochs are going to get done. But I'd guess something like 50 or 60. And we can see right here the metrics. So these are precision, recall, and then map 50 and map 50 to 95.
Yeah, and it's important to be aware that the time training is not always exactly that amount of time. There is some slight variation. You won't notice it on longer training, but on something like 60 seconds, you might notice that it runs a little bit over. But we don't charge you over that. We charge you for the agreed upon time. But there's sometimes an extra epoch that needs to run or some processing at the end of training that means that you might wait an extra minute or two, but you wouldn't notice that on a hour or 6 hour or 4 day long training because it'd be such a short period of time.
Yeah, and at the opposite end of the spectrum, if you guys have a very large data set where an epoch might take a few hours, then we actually compute the training down to the batch. So it'll be interrupted at the perfect batch to meet that time exactly. And then everything else works seamlessly just the way it does if it actually completed the full epoch. So the trained model up until that point, halfway through the epoch, for example, will be saved and will work correctly. All right, so it looks like everything's done. So it took a minute, just like we asked for.
Yeah.
And now we've got all of our training losses, metrics, and everything like that, just as if we trained it with Colab or locally.
Yep, exactly. And you
But
can see that
a little
it
easier
trained
since
a
we don't have to go
total
anywhere.
for, yeah, we can see that it trained for 60 epochs. So if we wanted to go ahead and replicate this training, we could grab the config that ended up. So we could do epoch training for 60 epochs, and we should get the same results, provided there's some variation depending on how we configure the other arguments. But yeah, effectively 1 minute happened to be 60 epochs in the case of this data set.
That's just coincidence though, right? It's not.
Yeah.
You didn't switch up seconds and epochs by accident, right?
No.
All right. So, our bill.
What
What does the bill look like? How much money did we spend here?
Yeah. So for this training, it cost me 2 cents. You can see that came in there. So we trained for 1 minute, and I'm able to go ahead and download that if I wanted to. Let me not cancel that tab.
Cool. Okay.
And the reason why we have this split up is so that you guys we still support the resume functionality in our cloud training. So in the case of time training, it's not a great example for that because you're effectively going to train until completion. But if you were going to do something like epoch training, if you run out of funds on your prepaid balance, we will stop training, but we'll save your resume checkpoints. You can come back at a later date and continue that training. And also, if you decide to stop training for whatever reason, you'll be able to stop training yourself and then resume at a later date if you wanted to. So that you will actually be able to see all the different training instances that you had spun up on a model. It only really applies to epoch training, but you would see that across here if you did do multiple different instances.
Okay.
Yeah. I suppose, seeing as it's kind of connected, I'll show you another way you guys can go ahead if you wanted to top up your balance. So if you come across your account, billing and licensing, this is where you would actually upgrade your account to Pro. I'm already on the Pro plan, but you would have the option over here to upgrade. And then here is another place where you can update your account balance if you wanted to add for cloud training. Currently, the account balance is only used for cloud training, but we will potentially use it in the future for our dedicated Inference when we release that.
That's right. Yeah, Inference. So the other half of the equation is the Inference side. So we have, so Kalen, can you explain like the current Inference API that we have there and then the plan for the future?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we currently provided an API for Inference for you guys to use, but this is a shared Inference. If you want to think of it, it's in a stateless environment. So that means that your results aren't going to be as fast as you would potentially want because we are having to create the environment every time you make a request. It was intended to be more used for demos than for something that you really need quick responses or you're going to have multiple images sent over a period of time. So what we're working on now is we've had a lot of requests from our users is to have a dedicated Inference, which would mean that we would actually spin up an API endpoint for you that you would be running continuously with very low latency. So you could just make requests and the model would be loaded and ready to go. And you would be able to spin that up and shut it down as and when you need it. So for some of you, that might mean just running it 24/7 and integrating it in your application. For somebody else, it might mean starting it up during work hours while your machines are running and then shutting it down at the end of the day. But that is what we have in plan to release in the near future.
Yeah, this is interesting. And for me also, like I start to think about the export formats. They'll go best with those deployment Inference APIs. So we've got a lot of formats that we're looking at right here, and some of them excel on CPU. So of course, if you want the ultimate speed, TensorRT on GPU is the way to go. But something more efficient maybe to export, for example, to Onyx, to OpenVINO on Intel CPUs, or even some of the more less known formats here like NCNN, which is surprisingly fast in some places.
Yeah.
So I think maybe automatically exporting to the fastest format for the backend and then deploying CPU instances, I think might be a really good way to go for these kind of permanently up Inference APIs.
Yeah, the same way as we mentioned with the cloud training, that we currently only support one instance type, but we plan to support multiple instance types. We have the same plans with dedicated inference. We know that to some of you guys out there, it's really important where your data is. You can't necessarily
Hmm.
allow your data to go to different countries, regions, zones, etc. So we want to make sure to give you as many configuration options in the long term as possible, so you can comply by all the regulations as they apply to you. So in addition to choosing where you actually want your API to be running, perhaps you would want to choose what hardware. For some of you, lower latency is more important. For others, higher accuracy. So you will be able to, in the long term, play around with that. But as we've done with cloud training, to get that feature out to you as quick as possible, we'll release it with working features and have you guys kind of comment and let us know what is the most important next step for you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Cal. And so like it's important to keep in mind Ultralytics is it's a small startup, and we like to move quickly and break things occasionally, but then fix them even faster. And so we try and get new features out the door as fast as possible, and feedback from the community is super helpful there. So things that you see that could be done better, or that may not work well, we'd really love to hear about those so that we can prioritize effort in that direction. So,
Mhm.
and that's worked really well on the YOLO side on open source. And I think here we could really use the same type of feedback also. So I know we've got this little yellow tab on the right side, Callan. Could you tell us how that works? Like, where does that go when someone fills that out?
Yeah, so we've added the option here for you guys to save some feedback with regards to the hub. The way that this works is it's actually a single type of feedback. So think of it similar to like an app store review. So if I go and put something in here and save it, when I come back on my next visit, the same information will be available. So this is less of a leave a comment and more of a leave your actual feedback. And we use that
Mm-hmm.
to kind of make sure that we are making you guys happy, and also to potentially use in the future, just to show everybody else how things are looking. So here you can
Okay.
go and select your rating for Hub, and then also leave a review based on how you find the product overall. A lot of our users do tend to use it to give us feedback with regards to maybe something that they want in the future, or an issue that they have faced. And you're welcome to go ahead and continue to do that. If we do find issues in the feedback, we do try to reach out to you guys via email, chase down what it is you're saying and get it resolved. But a better way to handle that is to use our support tab over here, which links across to our GitHub repo for managing issues. And this is a better place to log bugs, issues, or feature requests, because it'll be available publicly to all the rest of our users. So we can have people collaborating on ideas, and we can make sure to prioritize what everybody else thinks is important as well.
Yeah. So this will link right to our hub repo, Ultralytics/hub on GitHub, which
Yes.
is where we maintain things like feature requests and bug reports and things like that. So the good news is this is all public, and this really kind of like helps everybody share information, helps other users also kind of see fixes for things that may have been solved. So
Yeah. So we use this. This doesn't have any code in the repo itself. We do
yeah.
have just some examples, some example data sets. Glenn mentioned earlier that we have these little mini trial data sets here that are
Hmm.
also good for you guys. Some people sometimes get confused with the YOLO format. So these are another helpful way to just kind of browse and see how the data set should be structured.
Hmm.
And we use this repo primarily to manage issues. So if you guys
Hmm.
have feature requests, bugs, anything like that, feel free to come on here, log them in this section, and this is where we'll communicate back to you and make sure we're addressing everything that that comes up.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. So let's see here. I see we've got a few comments that have piled up on the YouTube side. So maybe we should take a look at those and see what people are asking.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So let me scroll to the top. I guess I'll just pick the first one that we see here. So all right, we've got let's see, Mustafa Kush. He says, "Can we develop an attribute to make customized feature extractions?" Oh, this is interesting. So this is I guess more of a technical question on the YOLO side. There is an argument called embed that you can run during the predict method, and instead of returning predictions, it'll return embeddings, which is the same thing as feature extraction, essentially. Not only that, but you can also tell it which layer you want the features extracted from. By default, it extracts them from the second to last layer, which is, for example, right before the detect head. But that's kind of interesting. It's in the documentation. So if you just search for the embed argument there, you can read more about it. Oh, and then we got a physics one here. All right, so Hammer says neutrinos aren't exciting because they're neutral and insignificant, but they're still cool. Well, I'm not sure if the neutrinos are gonna have their feelings hurt. So I don't know. I don't know if they're exciting or not, but I think a lot of physicists suspect that they may play like an outsized role in our universe that we're not entirely understanding. And one example of this is they could be responsible for, they could be the most numerous particle in all the cosmos. So, but to be honest, we don't understand as much as we should. And the process of discovering more is a very difficult one. It takes a lot of money and a lot of scientists and quite a bit of time. And that's really an ongoing effort. And I feel it'll probably be an ongoing effort for some time to come. So, all right, let's see. Great Sarma, it says, yes, indeed, I am a noob. Okay, less of a question, more of a statement. But
I think that was based
right.
probably on when we were mentioning that we try to make the product as easy and simple to use as possible.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. We get a lot of noobs here. We get some issues on GitHub, for example, with people saying that like I've never used Python in my life, but I trained a YOLO model and I can't figure out how to deploy it. So I'm not sure what to make of that. Like on the one hand, I'm really happy. Like on the other hand, like I don't know where to start, like giving support there. But let's see. So it looks like, Kalen, we got a question specifically for you. All right. So Hammer says, most important question for Kalen. How do I get an epic beard like yours? What's the secret?
Yeah, so I guess the secret is just work too much and don't have time to shave. That's the secret.
Well, it's just easier said than done.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay, this is another question that's actually been raised internally with the Ultralytics team too. Will Hub get a dark mode option for the UI? So this is a really divisive issue. Like on my side, I don't use dark mode really. I think my iPhone does it automatically, but on my desktop, I never use it, and so I never see things like this. But we've got a lot of developers. I think most developers use it by default.
Yeah.
So I think some people would really like to see that.
I think I definitely have plans to release a dark mode. When I'm using Hub, I end up using Dark Reader. So this is how Hub looks to me. This is not a real dark mode though. It's just something that's applied by an extension in my browser. So you're going to find that the branding is not great. But what we want to do is we do want to dedicate some time into building that, but it's definitely one of the lower priorities. We need to get the real features out first. But yeah, if you guys are interested, if the white really does bother you, download the Dark Reader plugin on your browsers. Definitely helps me while I'm working.
Yeah, this is true. Actually, no, that's a good point. Also, yeah, we need to really kind of get the core features out the door and make sure that they work correctly. Dark mode, it would be nice. Now, it is impactful. But I think at this point, like we really just want to make sure that the core product, kind of like the minimum viable product, is up and running, and then we can start to improve it from there.
We're working so hard on the feature that we don't get time to go out. So this extra white is giving us the tan that we need. So we don't,
especially in the winter. That's very important when you don't get a lot of sun. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so Mustafa Krush says, "What is the cost of Pro membership?" So the cost is $20 per month. And it brings a few goodies. It brings additional storage, higher Inference API limits, the cloud training availability, and so on. And so, and also Teams. Teams is a big feature. That was kind of like the original idea behind Cloud Pro. There's companies that would like to share what they're doing between different people in the company, but wouldn't want to make it public. And we didn't have anything like that. So Teams is, I think, like one of the biggest features there for kind of startups and enterprise users. And that's included within Pro. All right, so let's see. So Mustafa Krush, he's got a data set question. He says, if I have 10,000 images and 100 epochs, how much will it cost? So
Yeah,
this
so we
is,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Kind of, if we had the answer to that question, we wouldn't have had to build time training,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we would have just been able to do some kind of algorithm and figure it out. So it's a bit tricky to answer that question. There's a lot of,
Yeah.
depends on your settings.
It's almost
Um,
impossible to answer that question
mm,
reliably.
yeah,
And so that's why we've got the two training modes. So you can train for, say, 100 epochs like you've got there, and that'll take out of your credits. And the alternative, and that's just because we don't know how much to charge you for 100 epochs. And it's really
yeah,
not possible because there's so many minute differences that go in there. Um, that like the amount of time that 100 epochs is going to take, even on the same machine, will differ slightly by things like just the temperature or other processes that may be running on the machine and so on. So for 100 epochs, we just simply charge you how long it takes, but we don't know how long it'll take. But for time
mm,
training, we do, and that'll give you like a prediction for the price right at the start, and it's always the exact price that we show there. It's not
yeah.
like an Uber where they show you it's going to be like one price and then it's actually slightly different.
Yeah, so you could try and build, you could estimate effectively if you really wanted to get the answer to that. I wouldn't
Mm.
trust it to be exactly accurate, but you could do time training, say set time training for a minute, use your data set, check out how many epochs it actually trained for, divide that by the amount of time that it used, multiply that by 100 epochs. You can kind of guesstimate more or less what it would cost on
Oh,
the same instance. But that is kind of a sort of a trick that I'm telling you. It's not something that we necessarily are advertising. But if you wanted to get an idea, that's a suggestion.
yeah, it's a little tricky though, especially if you look at the first epoch and say it takes a minute to train. The first epoch and the second are always like a little slower than the rest for a variety of reasons. So we create some analytics and some plots in the first epoch, but also if this is the first time you've trained on that instance, then when an image is read from the disk, there's some caching that the operating system typically does, and so sequential reads of the same data may be faster. And so what this typically means is that it's really hard to tell just from one or two epochs like how long the data set's going to take to train. But I think once you get to the third or the fourth epoch, like those are rather reliable, and so you can just take that time and multiply it by 100, but include the validation time too.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see. Going down the list here. Uh, will the training plots or the full performance reports be possible to export or download? Yes, this is definitely in the roadmap, and this is something that we need to provide. Right now, they're JPEGs, JPEGs and YOLO, and over here on Hub, we have more of the information available. And we'd like to have kind of like a little three dots in the top left to be able to download this data, much like Plotly or Bokeh or other dashboard tools. And this will allow you to take that data and really customize the analysis you want to run with it.
Mhm. Yeah, we don't have any reason to keep this from you guys. So we will eventually add the feature and allow you to export all your data. If it's something you needed urgently, you're welcome to reach out now. We could supply that to you as well on a need by need basis.
Mm-hmm. Another question here is, are there going to be any data cleaning or analysis features? Will Hub be able to detect duplicate images or specific instances of bad annotations? And this really goes to the whole like source of this iterative training that still needs to be implemented here. So data set cleaning is sort of one step in the process, but there's other steps that are also missing, and the main missing steps I'd say are on the data annotation and cleaning side before you train, but even after you train, analysis on those results. So validation, introspection tools. This is something companies like Deep Checks do really well, and you can really kind of drill down, figure out the worst images, the worst features of your images, like and you can see what correlates with what. Like maybe lighter images perform better, maybe smaller images perform worse, and so on. And all those
Mhm.
things are really invaluable to allow you to go back to your data set and augment it in the areas that it's weak. And then this will allow you to truly create an iterative loop where you can continue to improve your data set. And this is very important for real world applications. For sort of like academic uses, there's a lot of like open loop training, which just means that there's no feedback. But for real world applications, you're gonna have things like domain drift. So if you
Mhm.
train on people in the summer, when it gets to winter, they may not be detected so well, and so on. or if say new types of cars come out, they may not be detected as well because you've never seen them in your data set. So that's very important, and those are features that we want to work on. Those are in the pipeline for later this year. But before we can get to those, we really have to kind of perfect some of this lower hanging fruit like we see today.
Yeah. So like we plan to really extend the functionality of these three different sections. So we have data sets, projects, and models. And we plan to do a lot of work in all of these sections. Currently for data sets, we only allow uploading data sets that are ready. We plan to add labeling features in the future so you guys can edit and label in browser. We also want to do a bunch of other work on the project side, so you have a lot more access to metrics, and a lot of the metrics that we currently supply, as Glenn mentioned, in JPEG format that we're not saving yet. We want to give you access to all of that. And then in addition to that, with the models, actually being able to deploy even to your own hardware using some of our tools that we plan to open source some more of our code in the future to allow you to actually build your own mobile applications and things like that as well.
Yeah. And I should say also there's a lot of exciting things going on the vector data set side, vector database side. So we've got a new tool in YOLO called Explorer. And so we are starting to take steps there on kind of duplicate detection and so on. And we are going to migrate those into Hub too, as we can.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see here. How do I upload my data set, and can I upload private data sets that will not be public? By Andre.
Yeah. So
what do you think, Kalen?
So here we have the dataset upload. Here you have the button. You can come here, select upload dataset. These are the different tasks that we currently support. So you would select the task for the dataset that you're choosing to upload. And then you would just go ahead and select the zip from your machine, and that would start the upload process. We currently, at the moment, for those lucky few of you who already have accounts, we do allow you to upload unlimited free datasets within the applied storage to your account. But it looks like it's something we're not going to be able to continue indefinitely. So we will, in the future, allow everybody a certain amount of free private data sets. But after that point, probably we would have to be forced to make them public. But yes, you can upload private data that remains private to your account. You can currently do that on all of the Hub plans. And in the future, you will be able to do that on all of the Hub plans. There just will maybe be a slight change to the quota that we have applied.
Yeah, okay. And then we've got an interesting question here from Uttam Mittal. He says, can we modify some layers of YOLO while training? And this is a great question because you do want to do this. We've got some great models, but the heart of ML is really experimenting with the architectures and the training and understanding what works and what could work better. Oh, just had a little lighting change here. So to answer your question, oh, nice. Purple, pink, blue. Okay. So to answer your question, yes, but the way that you do that is not directly from Hub. So if you go into a Python environment and you install the Ultralytics pip package, then this will allow you to log in remotely from Hub and train a model locally in your environment, but log that directly to Hub. And then it'll be saved in the cloud there in Hub, and you can see all your results in one place. And training like this, there's really no limit on the architecture. So you can use the official models, but you can also customize them infinitely. You can change any modules that you want, any layers. You can have a new Uttam YOLO model, and you can see that right there in Hub. and most of the functionality should work identically. Export is something that may not work depending on how exotic of an architecture you put in there. But all the same functionality should be available, which is really cool. This like dramatically expands the capability of Hub. And I think it also kind of provides the same capabilities they've seen a lot of other logging tools like weights and biases. So that's pretty exciting. And that's available right now. And it's in the docs. So if you go to docs.ultralytics.com, you can see how to do that. I think the command is YOLO Hub login. I think that'll prompt you for your Hub password. And then once you're logged in, then you just train a model and it'll automatically upload to Hub.
Yeah.
And then every model you train will automatically upload to Hub. So if you want to stop uploading them to Hub, then you just log out. And I think the command for that might be something like YOLO Hub logout, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you can log out. You can also disable Hub in your settings if you wanted to. if you wanted to keep your API key on your system. So you have two options. So we either check if you've enabled Hub, which is currently enabled by default, or if you have actually applied your API key. So because Hub is enabled by default, if you apply your API key, we'll start logging automatically to your account. But you can just disable Hub and stay logged in if you wanted to. You have those two options. And just to add to that, when you start training with a Hub connection, so you've logged in and you've enabled Hub, it'll print out in the console the URL to the Hub model. So if you don't see that, then it actually hasn't connected.
Yeah, it should give you a link, right? So once your model starts training, you get a link, you just click it, you go straight there. It's really cool. And you can see all this in your settings. So YOLO has these permanent settings that are saved, and you can access them just by typing YOLO settings. It'll show you where they're saved, all the values, and it'll give you instructions for how to change them if you want, including logging in or logging out of Hub.
Yeah, so if you do that, bear in mind that because you're using local data, we don't have access to anything about your data set. With the current implementation, we're not tracking anything about your local data set. So when you come to the Hub model, this data set section will just say the data set's unavailable. And any preview images we generate here will just be from our default setup. We won't be able to use anything as it relates to your data.
Yeah. So this is interesting. This is actually it's not a limitation. It's like a feature we built in because typically people want to keep their data private, and this allows you to do that. So you can train on sensitive data locally, and your model will be logged to Hub, but your data will stay on your computer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important to add because we do give you the option to actually connect it to a data set. So if you have uploaded a data set, when you create the model, you can connect the model to the data set you've already uploaded. And in that case, you would be able to see the connection here if you wanted to share the dashboard with a friend or a colleague.
And let's see. So Great Sarmad is asking if he uploads the data set, will it automatically become public? Or can I look somewhere for more data sets you could recommend?
So yeah, I think that similar to the question we answered already. So data sets, if you upload at the moment, they will be public, they'll be private, or currently as we speak right now, all data sets will be private. But as I mentioned, there will be a quota in place in the future. You do have the option to change any of your private data sets to be unlisted data sets or to share them across with your team members. Public option currently is only available to the internal Ultralytics team, but we're busy working right now on expanding the public features to give you guys the option to go ahead and actually preview public data sets from other users. So right now, everything that you see that's publicly available has actually been approved by the Ultralytics team. But in probably a month, we're looking to release it end of March. Public data sets will be user content as well. So we'll have some changes to the UI. And in that case, you will be able to search for data sets from other users. We do also have the integration with RoboFlow. If you wanted to go ahead and connect up any data sets from their platform, that's available as well. And you can see that I do have some data sets here already. That's another way to source data sets.
Yeah, okay. And let's see, we've got Uttam again. So it looks like he's interested in modifying his model. He's asking, how can I customize the YOLO model in my Python environment? And so this is where you start to get your hands dirty with experimenting with different architectures. And the way that you do that locally is two ways. So we have a model YAML file. So YAML is a settings file, which defines the different layers. For example, a convolutional layer and maybe an upsample layer and so on. And so you can create a model like that, or you could more easily start from an existing model. Like you probably want to take YOLO v8 or YOLO v8.yaml, modify it slightly just to get the feel of it. And then the other place is the modules themselves. And these are Python classes that are in Ultralytics/NN. So you can create one yourself and then call it in your YAML, or you can modify one of the existing ones. And then from there, there's really no solid kind of like right answer. It's the ceiling's the limit for your creativity and what you want to come up with and experiment with. So, okay, and then let's see. Suraj Kumar says, is it only changing after or charging after training? Also, will we be able to download the weight file of the trained model? You can definitely download the weight files, yes. In PyTorch or any of these other flavors like TF-Late, CoreML, TensorRT, Onyx, and so on. And the charge, like when exactly does that happen, Callan? Is it the beginning of training or at the end?
Yeah, so at the moment, if you want to use time training, we'll charge your card before you start training, so you'll pay up front. And if you want to use epoch training, you also pay up front, but you pay up front into your balance. So you would top up your balance with, say, $20, and you'll start training, and we actually charge you at the end of every epoch. So at the end of every epoch, we'll calculate the time that's passed, and we'll deduct that from your balance. But you will have to have paid into your account before you can start the training. If your balance then drops to zero, or perhaps sometimes slightly below zero, we'll stop the training. We'll save a checkpoint so you can resume. And then when you come back to the platform, you'll see that your model training has stopped. You're able to top up your balance, resume training, and then it will restart from the checkpoint that we have saved.
Yeah, great. Okay. Let's see. Great Saramad is back. He's got a question. He's detecting vehicles in satellite imagery from top-down views. So there's a few existing data sets that I think will be really good for this. There's one called VizDrone, which is a drone data set that's been recorded, I think, in China, and it's got a few classes like people, vehicles, and and it's in Hub, so you can start from this right away. So this is not like perpendicular top down, but it is from an elevated angle. So you could start from this data set. And the other one that's really exciting is our OBB data set. So DOTA has a data set of imagery, which really is much higher. It's from a bird's eye view, essentially. But that's using a different technology. It's oriented bounding boxes. So that's going to give you images from the top, and it's going to allow you to track vehicles at different angles. So we've got some really cool videos on LinkedIn that our marketing team has created. You can take a look at there. And those are, from what I could see, very good at tracking vehicles from the top. So I would encourage you to take a look at either of those. Yeah, there we go. And we've got a link right here. You can just click on that to learn more about it. Okay, and then one last question. We have the YOLO V9 question. So we got Suraj, he's back. He's saying, will YOLO V9 be available? And the answer is yes. So our team is training models on it right now. And we should have those. I'm not going to give you like a certain date, but I think relatively soon. So we have the architecture YAMLs already implemented in the Ultralytics repository in the YOLO V9 branch. And those models are being trained right now on our servers. And once those are done, then we should be able to release those as pre-trained models. But you can start today if you check out the YOLO V9 branch. So, and I think in a few more days, you should be able to start from those trained models. So the V9 models are kind of interesting. We're still going through the architecture. I'd say the performance is interesting. The speed may leave something to be desired, but I think they're kind of an interesting step in the right direction. I think the R&D is definitely a great step, and I think the contribution there to the community is wonderful. So
I just want to add something real quick before we hop off the call. We didn't mention we did some work on the Ultralytics app as well to give you guys some more portability to the training. So if you go ahead and train your model via Hub while you're on the platform and say it's still training or still loading, you can kind of head out, go grab yourself something to eat, and you can monitor the training progress directly in the app. And we have the same we have the same live connection with the charting, so you can monitor from the restaurant and see how your model's doing.
Yeah, this is super cool. Like I don't really know of another tool that lets you do this. Especially, if you're doing serious training, it's probably going to take a few days, and then this is super helpful. You can just pop open the app and see where you are, see how much time is taken and how much is estimated to be left. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and it looks like we are right on time. So we wrapped this up perfectly. Not sure how. Like we're never really this good with time, but today it seems like we did it. So thank you guys for joining. Thanks for all the questions here. If we didn't get to all of them, make sure to stop by our GitHub repository and leave an issue there on the Hub repo. And try out the cloud training. Let us know what you think. And we'll be back, I think, in a few weeks with the next live session. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Also, feel free to pop by our Discord.
Also, we have a vibrant Discord. The link's right there on the GitHub repo. So, or I think you can just go to ultralytics.com/discord.
Yeah, easy.
Great. Okay.
Awesome,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a
Bye.
lot. Ciao.
Yeah.